In this video, we're going to see the basic parameter of transform. If I take my cloner, which clones just cubes on a grid array, as you can see here, grid array, I'm going to apply to it a plane effector. Everything jumps 100 centimeter upward because this is the default value here. So the plane effector is just going to do exactly the same thing as here our cloner. If I just tweak the transform, you can see here it's moving upward this way and so on. So let's get back to it, and the plane effector is just going to do that. It's going to do the same thing with the scaling. If I change the scaling, as you can see, I could create something like that, and also with the rotation. Of course, it makes sense in that case if I just use the fall off. If I use a spherical fall off, for example, we will see the effect, and we can create some nice pattern like that. Let's delete this spherical field. Let's go back to our plane effector and let's see some parameter. First, what's about here the effector tab? In the effector tab, you have strength. So the strength is just going to apply the strength of the effect to everything. Don't confuse it with the one you can find in the effector here. Those two are separated. So if I go back here, we can see here in the effector the strength. The selection is something we will see in another video, but in short, you can just select a few of the clones here and apply the effect to it. The min-max is very important, and it just depends on what kind of effector you're going to have. Here with the plane effector, it's pretty easy. The maximum is just going to give you the maximum, and it's going to remap, so you can just reverse the effect going this way. The minimum doesn't seem to do anything, because this is just a plane effector. So to demonstrate that, just deactivate here the plane effector. We're going to take a cloner and then add a random effector. Okay, so the random effector is going to scatter everything. I'm going to deactivate here in the position the X value and the Z value. So it's just going to move them upward or downward. And we can see if I deactivate, we will see that better in the front view. And let's change the display to grow shading line. We can see here it's going to displace them from the center with 50 centimeters. So let's create a cube and let's make this cube 100 centimeter on Y. We can see here 100 centimeter is exactly the minimum and maximum value of our displacement we have put here. So 50 plus 50 centimeter upward, downward, that makes 100 centimeter. And that's what the effector min tab is going to do. So if we take our maximum value to 100%, but the minimum to 0%, we see that the cube are going to move only upward. Also, if I just do the opposite, now we can see it's only going to be moved downward. Okay, so let's put them to 100%. I'm going to delete this cube, we don't need it anymore. F1 to go back to the perspective view. We can see also here on the parameter, the scaling. If we use a scaling for this kind of object, so let's just deactivate the position. And let's use the scaling and let's decrease the value, increase. And here on Y, I will go further, and on Z. So we can see here we have all sort of different cubes. See this one, which is kind of tall. This one is slim and long. This one also. That means that the random effector is going to randomize the value for X, Y, Z individually. So every cube is different. Here, the uniform scale is just going to change them with the same value on X, Y, and Z. Also, please note that if we go further than 1, which is 100%, you can see here our cube are going to shrink. Let's see this one or this one, for example. We can see the size. If we go further than 1, they're going back. Take a look at those one here. If I go further than 100%, they're going back and growing again. Okay? You have an option to limit that, which is the absolute scale. If I just use the absolute scale, we can see here if I go from 0 to 100%, no one is going to go back. So they are not going to shrink, and they're always only growing. Always, of course, be careful if you go back with a negative value, because this is negative, you can have the same effect again. That is the refreshing effect of the cube shrinking and growing back. With a positive value, you won't have this problem. Another way to limit that would be to deactivate here the absolute scale. Let's go back to this value, and you could just play with the effector tab. So here, if I just put the minimum value to 0%, you know that the increase in scale is only going to be positive, because it has been limited with that. The difference is here, if I use the position also, it's only going to move them upward. Let's see here with our effector, if I go back to the effector and put back the minimum to minus 100%, you can see it's moving upward or downward. But if I just activate the absolute scale, now it's going downward or upward, but the scale is always positive. Of course, if we go back to our plane effector, so I just deactivate the random and go back to the plane effector. Here, if you just use the uniform scale, it's going to do the same thing on all of the cube. Okay, so this is it about the transform property and the effector tab. In the next video, we will see how we can color our object, and also how we can use selection mode and how to use the transform mode.